So the QEP, the Quality Enhancement Plan, is a part of the reaccreditation process, and every university and college go through this process. And it's the opportunity for an institution to enhance its overall quality and effectiveness by focusing on an issue or issues that an institution considers important to improving student learning. So this is directly from our QEP handbook. And so what is the QEP? What we're looking to do, the development team, we're looking to physically develop a center for service. So this will be a physical location that we will need to identify on campus. We are looking to make sure that it's a clearinghouse, a focal point for all service-based activities. So if you think about it, we're looking at capacity building. How can we enhance the work that we're currently doing at this point? The mission of the Center for Service is to enhance student learning by providing the infrastructure and support for a learning environment that facilitates and encourages student learning and for students to engage in life. So again, we're looking at increasing the capacity here. More like a centralized approach, if you will. Why a Center for Service? You're probably thinking, well, we're already doing a lot of this. Exactly. Marymount is committed to service. It's in our mission. It's in our values. It's in everything that we say that we're about. Also, our alumni, we looked at our survey report, and it indicated that service is very important to our students, as well as once they complete their degree here. So some of the goals for our QEP, the first step, again, we're going to establish a Center for Service. We need to make sure that it's supporting, promoting, and coordinating. It's a centralized approach to all of our service opportunities here. We will also need to design, develop, and implement a framework that will be sustainable beyond the 5 years and 10 years. It needs to be accessible, so we need to be able to assess the program, make sure that it's working. We will need staff, so we don't have that here, so this will be a new approach as well. We want to help you. We want to help faculty and staff increase their knowledge of service learning, opportunities for students to engage in service. So this will be a big cornerstone of our center. We also want to increase student participation. We realize that students are already doing service all across the campus, but how can we make sure that they have resources available? So a website, information that's easily available for them. We're going to have various activities in the center. So when we're looking at the Center for Service, again, the main thing we want to serve as a clearinghouse, a centralized approach to collect and disseminate information on service. So if you're looking to have a service learning course or conduct community-based research, or if a student say I'm interested in service, it would be a centralized place for those opportunities. We would work really closely with the CTL. We want to make sure that we have professional development and training opportunities for faculty. So if you're thinking about transitioning or incorporating service learning in your course, you would have a centralized place to go for technical assistance. We also want to celebrate. We want to recognize all the service that's currently going on. So we would have a community service fair where all of our community partners can come on campus so faculty can easily learn about the various organizations and ways to connect, serve, and students can also do the same. We want to promote service learning courses by sharing the syllabi for resources. So again, we want to make it easy. As we've been going through these sessions, a lot of faculty and staff have been asking, is this just more red tape? What's the process? We want to make sure that this is an easier opportunity for you to conduct service, whether it's in your class or for students. And again, we want to assess the university's progress. How are we creating this culture of service? And so we will utilize technology to track some of the service activities. The university is looking, we're moving forward with getting OrgSync, so that will be an opportunity for us to track some of our service opportunities. I will turn it over to our co-chair to talk about service.
Thank you. I just want to introduce myself for those of you who do not know me. I am Amanda Wright. I'm an associate faculty member in the School of Arts and Sciences in the Department of Biology. So just thank you guys for coming to learn about this. And Yolanda has touched on the fact that we already do a lot of service here at Marymount. And so what I want to highlight today in this portion of the presentation is some of that service that we're doing and some of the types of service that are already happening around you. So again, the job of this center is going to be to really coordinate any and all service activities that are happening on campus. These are some examples. These are not mutually exclusive terms by any means, but these are some of examples of the types of service that this center will coordinate and that are already happening on this campus. So we're talking about organizing volunteerism, so the donation of your time and energy. We're talking about community engagement, community partners, so working with local, national, global partners to conduct service. We're talking about coordinating service learning courses, as Yolanda mentioned. So that's the pedagogical technique that we're going to use in our classes. We're talking about community-based research, scholarship, or creative activities where students help identified needs. We're talking about extracurricular service that is done outside of the classroom with no particular learning initiatives, and we're also talking about co-curricular service, so where there is a learning component built in. And so we just wanted to talk about, again, some of the examples of these types of service that are being done at Marymount, and just to let you guys know some of these things that are happening around you that you might not even be aware of. So one of these examples excuse me, are the MU baby blankets. So this was an initiative that was started, and now students get together. They have 268 blankets and raised $1,500 for an organization called HOPE, which is a nonprofit that offers pregnancy counseling and assistance. So this is a student-driven initiative that is already happening at Marymount. Oops, excuse me. We also have Go Baby Go. So some of you may have be familiar with this. There were more than 200 community volunteers associated with this initiative when it launched in 2016. We have students from the physical therapy department that take battery-operated children's cars, and they modify these cars for children with special needs and mobility issues. This has been going on, again, at Marymount since 2016. Okay. We have the Arlington Academy of Hope. So these are elementary education majors that have gone out into the community, partnered with the Arlington Academy of Hope, particularly in Uganda, to provide things like teacher training, supply delivery, conduct research. So this is an example of one of those global partnerships that Marymount already has established. We also have service learning courses here at Marymount. One example of which, did I lose this? Okay, I think if I go too far. One example of which is the Nursing 339 Global Service Learning and Nursing course. So here students go out into the community. They focus on things like health promotion, cultural competence, capacity building, social justice. This particular picture was when students traveled to Nicaragua. We have Hawksbill Hopes. So many of you know Todd Rimkus takes a group of students to Belize every year where they tag endangered Hawksbill Turtles. So again, this is where an example of where Marymount has partnered with Hawksbill Hope, which is a nonprofit organization, to support this turtle tracking program. This program pays for supplies. It also pays the wages of local villagers who help monitor these turtles. So this is a real example, again, of a partnership that Marymount has to help support community research. We also have St. Serve. So many of you know about the St. Serve Kickoff Day that happens every year where students get together. This year, they assembled 2,000 care packages for teenagers that are transitioning from foster care to life on their own. So again, just an example of some of the service that is happening here. We also have recently established a 3D printing lab here at Marymount. Dr. Eric Bubar and his help print and produce 3D prosthetic hands and arms for people who are in need. So he's partnered with an organization called Enabling the Future, which helps supply the templates and get this information out. So the students currently print about 20 hands a semester, and this is to help fulfill requests from the community. Dr. Bubar has also helped a local middle school set up their own 3D printing lab. So again, this is a partnership with our local community. And lastly, we have alternative break, which a lot of our students take advantage of. This is where students give up their spring break to go on a service trip. They do things such as simple service like cooking and cleaning. They also have relational service activities where they spend time and share their life with people that they meet. This, if you've talking to students who have gone on these trips, it is a real life-changing experience for them, and this is something that our center would continue to support. So just so you know where we are in the process, of developing this QEP. We are here in October and November where we are gathering feedback from the community, particularly in terms of our mission and our goals. In December, the development team is going to take that feedback, will tweak and finalize the mission statement and the goals and the focus for this center. When we come back in January, we will immediately launch a naming contest and a logo contest, so you'll be hearing about this. Encourage your students to participate in this. We will also be working on developing the assessment plan, so the outcomes as well as the assessment plan for assessing those outcomes. The organizational structure will be nailed down, and actually budget and identifying a location for the service should really be moved up a little bit. So we are going to currently start working on that in November. Thank you. Excuse me. So those things are due a little sooner. We hope to establish those things in the next month or so. After that, come late spring in 2017, we will again come back to you providing updates on where we are pertaining to the budget, pertaining to that assessment plan, and pertaining to the name and the logo for the center. So we will come back to the community through information sessions or by coming to your schools and let you know where we are for that. It is that time of year. Then in early summer, we will be finalizing the writing portion of the QEP, so we will be held up in a room probably writing away to get this ready to send and submit to SACS. During August of 2017 to February 2018, we will again be promoting the center, so you'll be hearing a lot from us. At that point, you'll be getting a lot of feedback, and we will be preparing for the SACS visit in March of 2018. So that's when SACS will have their on-site visit. There will be a day devoted to the QEP where we will talk to them about this center. So last, just so you know, the makeup of the development team. So Yolanda and I, again, are your co-chairs with Stephanie McDevitt on the writing subcommittee as your staff representative. Then we have 3 subcommittees. We have a background and context subcommittee that has helped us in terms of doing a literature review and looking at models. We have our assessment committee that's going to be working on those learning outcomes and how we're going to assess those outcomes. And then we have the fun committee, as I like to call them, the Marymount Engagement Subcommittee. So you're going to be hearing a lot from these folks. We have, as you can see, student representatives on this committee that are going to help us reach out to students and talk to us about the most effective way to reach students and get them engaged in this process as well. We also have an advisory board to the development team. So these are people that are going to be guiding us along the way and answering questions that we have and leading us in the right direction. We have representatives across all divisions. As you can see from the university, we still are waiting on a couple of representatives from a couple of divisions. But if you are interested in any way or know somebody who might be, please reach out to us and let us know. This is a great place for you to get involved and to serve and guide through this process so that your voice is heard. Okay, now's the time for questions. So we will take questions that you have. If there's anything you'd like us to know or to consider, we would happily feedback. We'll do our best to answer any questions that you may have. Again, if you leave today and just have that burning question that you forgot to ask, you can always email qep@marymount.edu. As Bridget said, that email address is monitored all the time, and we will happily respond to questions through that email. We We also have a presence on the portal, so you can reach our QEP page on the portal through that address where we post updates and feedback as we get it. So we will, so why don't you guys, if you want, you have sheets on your table that have the mission statement and the goals at the top, and then a place for questions and comments. If you want to talk to your table mates for a few minutes and talk through and ask questions, and then we will come back in about 5 or 10 minutes and take questions from the larger group.
And I also want to make a mention that we are meeting with facilities next week. So we are working with UPenn to identify potential locations. So if you have questions about space, we are working that out as we speak. So we have a question. Leanne has a question.
It's not a question about space, so it's although that is a question. So you have not yet talked about organizationally where this will go? Do you have thoughts about organizationally where this center would reside?
Yes, we do. So for those of you who did not hear the question was related to the organizational structure. So the development team has met, and we discussed that the center will consist of a director, assistant director, the service learning faculty coordinator, and ideally support staff. The director of the center will report to the provost directly and indirectly report to the vice provost of student affairs. There's another question. Again, budget pending. We're working on the budget.
So that brings up another question. So we have a Spirit of Service scholars.
Yes.
And so there's a number of them on campus already, and they're required to do 60 hours at each semester, and they get a small scholarship each year. How do we envision incorporating those students into this type of program? Because I could potentially see them as being rising leaders and maybe be part of that center if you're not able to get funding for permanent staff.
Great question. My dear friend in the back, Ann Achel, actually coordinates our Spirit of Service scholars. One of the things that we're looking at doing, one of the things we're looking to do is to certainly work with our student affairs individuals and make sure that we're increasing the Spirit of scholars. We would serve as a resource, and so when they're looking at service opportunities, if they were looking for different opportunities to serve, they could actually use the center, but we're working out the actual process and how that would be coordinated with student affairs.
How would the service areas be divided as far as specific types of, you know, if somebody's in biology or interior design or any of those, you know, specific areas, how would that be handled?
Is everyone able to hear that question? Okay, great. So one of the things that we're looking at, if we're able to get a director and assistant director, our director would be more outward facing, so working with our community partners, and our assistant director would work really closely with faculty. And we would hope that the faculty service learning coordinator would also be instrumental in the process. So we would work really closely with them to reach out to faculty about opportunities. We will also have global education, so nothing will go away. We will still have some of the same things in place, but we just simply want to enhance that.
Hello. Full disclaimer, I am a staff. And I was just curious, I guess I, oh, sorry. Hi. I guess I was curious that you mentioned many times talking about the culture of service, but you didn't mention anything about staff or faculty participating in the service themselves. I hear a lot of talk about the mission reaching out to students and many questions related to students, and I think that's absolutely wonderful. But I feel like there's a missing piece here, and that staff, like myself, I'll throw myself under the bus, would love to participate in more service, but I don't know of any opportunities to do that in a way that are more organized. Like occasionally I'll see the emails about different things that are being done by the students, and occasionally it'll be mentioned whether staff are allowed to participate. But I'd love to see this expand out to really talk about the culture as a whole.
That is a great question. Thank you for bringing that up. And I think that is our full intent with this center, to fully engage faculty and staff with the students. So the purpose of QEP, as Yolanda talked about earlier, one of the main focus points that we have to have is to enhance student learning. That is, according to SACS, that is a focal point for the QEP. But the way that we enhance student learning is by engaging our students in this service with faculty and staff. So thank you for pointing out. Maybe that's something that we need to talk more about as a development team, of making that more of a point of this. But it is fully our intent for faculty and staff to be engaged with the students in these service opportunities. And that's something that we hope this will help address. If I'm a staff or I'm a faculty and I want to do service, that I can contact somebody at the center and they can help me find places for me to plug in and get engaged. Questions?
Since the focus is on student learning, are you envisioning coming forward with a proposal that there be a requirement for service learning?
At this point, no. We do not want to make it a requirement for service.
So, can you all hear me? I have a question as it relates. I see everywhere that we call this the Center for Service, but I hear us talk a lot about service learning, which is different than service. And so, I guess my question to this group is, assessment models would be different for a service learning initiative than they might be for a service opportunities. Is this something that you all thought about? Meaning, is service connected to retention, right? Where you might volunteer, like the group that's making blankets, versus a service learning opportunity where it's directly connected to your learning in a course, or maybe a sort of service learning objective that might be more broadly tied to objectives that are about merit out, but not a specific course. And so I wonder how you might stitch those together or separate them when you start to talk about methods of assessment. There's a reason that learning is not in the title of this, is that correct?
Sure, Dan. All right. Let our assessment expert answer.
I'm speaking on behalf of our assessment subcommittee on the QEP development team. Your question is a good one. This center is a center for all kinds of service. Under our global definition of service, of course, service learning is a very important component. So we would hope through the Center of Service to build capacity across campus to increase the amount of service learning on campus. That means to do faculty training, to track enrollment in service learning courses, the number of sections offered, and learning outcomes within those courses. For the assessment of the global outcomes of this project, what we're looking at is our research has showed us that participation in any kind of service increases students' completion and retention rates on campus. They also leads to gains in educational outcomes and in attainment of life skills. So what we'll be doing, we'll be building in some student learning outcomes to this that will look at that. They'll look at completion and graduation rates. We'll also look at gains in academic outcomes, for example, our core competencies, and also life skills developments like lifelong learning, leadership skills, and things like that. Does that answer your question? Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I came in late from another meeting, so this might have been addressed, but is there a plan to engage graduate students?
Yes, we actually have a student representative on the development team. Brenda Blanchard is a grad student, and we also have a student on the advisory. And on one of the works, student, she will actually work with our grad students by attending the grad council and connecting students in various programs. So she's going to kind of make sure that we have feedback and input from our graduate students. So we have graduate and undergraduate, commuter and residential students represented.
So just to Doug's point and Ann's comments, so you had a number of service opportunities on the screen that already exist. Will those people who've been doing that for a number of years have to change something? Will they have to incorporate some other kind of outcomes in their courses? What will change for the existing ones?
So it is fully our intention that if you have a service opportunity that is working for you, it is not our intention to change that whatsoever. If it works, we don't want to fix what ain't broke, okay? So if it's working, I think we support that. We want to serve as a resource. We want to be able to celebrate that. We want to be able to let the Marymount community know about it. But it is not our intention to create more work, more red tape to change anything. If it's working, we want you to continue doing it in the way that has been working for you.
I can add a little bit to that because I'm the service learning coordinator they keep talking about. So I think that's absolutely right. The things that are working we don't want to change, but we are in the process of working on a formal designation for courses that have service learning. And so, again, it's not so much to change your course if you already have a functioning service learning. It's more to identify the things that we need to see in a course. So I don't want to talk too much about it now, but you'll be hearing about it hopefully next week at school meetings. So it's in process.
I also want to add to Leanne, so with some of the services already taking place, we will probably have forms that they would complete so that way we can at least track and be able to know what people are doing and serve as a resource. Ideally, we'll have a website, so if individuals are looking for service, we can see what's already occurring. So that would be a new addition in terms of documentation and submitting information to the center. So that could be a tweak. What was that other question?
Sorry, if you were talking about you don't want to change the course, but you're going to give us parameters on what we should do. I'm not really understanding that. And also we have a certain number of hours that we're now requiring our students. Is there going to be, set hours?
Maybe I can help with some of that. We right now, on Marionette, you will see courses designated SL. They're self-described. We aren't sure what they are, so what we've been working on is developing service learning courses. Matt, for a good year now, has been working on even evaluating what we had on campus, what is happening. Some people call service learning one thing, some call it community-based learning. And so we've been working through a proposal, and he's been doing research on best practices. We have a small group of people who are an advisory group that are helping develop what this service learning designation will be. That's what's going to be coming to schools very soon for everybody's input. Some things could change if it is going to be designated through the university as service learning. That doesn't mean you can't do service in your course. And if you meet certain requirements, yes, you would have a service learning designation. And it's based off of best practices. So if you're doing 10 hours, that's fine. You could still have service course, but it's not going to be designated an SL course. So we're trying to work out is what exactly an SL course is, and that's what you will be hearing coming around through the schools.
I think I'm loud enough as it is without the mic, but I'm curious, I'm hearing sort of alternative things. In answer to one of the faculty's questions, we said there was to be no change to the curriculum. So to what end is a designation in the catalog of service learners? How is that going to be used, and what purpose does that serve if there's not going to be a curricular change?
There's no requirement through the university. That was told last year. We heard loud and clear when we were doing all of the QEP. Loud and clear, there was not to be a curriculum.
The question is, then, what end is the service learning designation within the course selection? How is that to be used by the university to people who are advising students on what classes to take?
Let's keep going with the QEP. That's what's all going to be coming forward. Okay, there's designations for courses with global perspective. What does it mean? We're trying to make a designation for what SM is. There's not going to be a requirement, and what we're saying is if you're already doing service, you can continue doing service. The center is here to help people promote it and to work with the community as well as other faculty, and basically do clearinghouse. It's not to manage people's courses by any stretch.
So I've been having my students go out and do some service this semester, and by far the biggest problem we have is transportation. So I'm wondering what you all are talking about in terms of managing transportation.
So as you can see, the advisory board, we've added transportation because we know service, if you're going off campus, you need transportation to get the back and forth. That's also one of the main hindrances from faculty wanting to do service, because you have to figure out how will I get there and how will I get back. So we're asking that we don't have a rep right now, but we have certainly reached out to the transportation department because that's going to be key. We're also hoping that once the director is hired, that the director will work with the transportation division to make sure that we have a seamless process, because it cannot be a hindrance for this.
How is this related to Discover so that we don't have almost like, well, I can see two competing initiatives?
the question was, how does this compare to Discover? Are you referring to the Discover course? Yes?
Yes, there's a Center for Discover, and the Discover course is replicated, and now it's going to be a Center for Service Learning.
So just to be clear, we do not have a Center for Discover. They're Discover 101 and 201 courses, but there's not a center, so they're not competing. It's separate.
The other thing that I think we need to be clear about is this is Center for Service Learning. So we're not pulling this center for only learning. This is going to be a service that is going to all service activities across campus, not specific to service learning. All service. And I think it is a little different from the Discover program, which seems to focus on the first year experience, certainly. So our first year students, our transfer students, and also to promote student research and undergraduate and graduate student research. Whereas this is more of a cultural change, or not a change, but a cultural shift that we're trying to establish on campus across all students, across all faculty, across all staff, to focus on service.
So we struggled with this last year when we started to develop the question of volunteerism was shifted with the initial group. What are the strategies that you can share with us, strategies for making this shift so that services becomes part of the heart of the university? For staff, for faculty, and for students. What's incentivizing for students to want to partake in this?
Faith, you're on the advisory committee. We're waiting to hear from you about that.
I think one important thing to note is that our students already value service. Our students do a lot of service. They long for these service opportunities. Our alumni talk about how important service is to them and was to them when they were here. I think our value this service, and we, after looking at this, where we lack is making it easy, having a place where they can go and do this, and for faculty and staff, making it easier for faculty and staff to start up a service initiative or get involved in a service opportunity. And so I think that's where I see the point of this center coming in, is to enhance and make it easier for something that our students already value and already participate in. But you're right, we are looking for a cultural shift, and there are going to be some things that have to go with that, and that's something that I think will work out.
Can I say something here too? Faith, I think you hit it on the head, because I think this is the hardest thing, and I think we have to figure out, because everybody in the room has to engage if we are going to make this cultural shift. And staff, faculty, students, we have to be mentors to our students and display these service behaviors. And I think this is going to be one of the hardest things, is making this cultural, change and doing it, making sure everybody buys into it. You hit it right on the head. I mean, that's going to be the hardest part.
And Faith, I would also add, as we're developing the budget, we're looking at potential grants and scholarship opportunities, so faculty will want to engage in that kind of research and want to engage in service learning. We're also looking at the scholarships and how can we help increase that. So we're looking at our budget as we're developing that, and that's one of the things that we're thinking about. So to answer your question. Whoa, we have the whole table back here. The whole table's back here. We have about 10 minutes, so we have some burning questions. If we're not able to get to you today, just write them down. Okay. No,
we talked a lot about students. We've talked a lot about the QEP. We've talked a lot about the university, about assessment, about outcomes, and we're missing the community partners. And I guess what would make me feel a little better about moving forward is understanding the philosophical basis upon which we're approaching the community that we hope to serve. I think that where looking at situations. I think we all care about the world that we live in and making the world a better place. But the way that we do that may not be charging out into the horizon. So I guess my question to the committee is, there's a significant body of literature that has come about recently talking about the problems associated with service learning, and the measurement of outcomes for students as opposed to the measurement of outcomes for the community. So what have you talked about and how are you thinking about this? And I put it on the table because this is a philosophical issue, not simply an assessment issue. It's what are we doing here and why are we doing it? Sure, it benefits our students. Sure, it's a retention issue, but isn't it ultimately about making the world a better place?
Great question. We are looking and thinking about that as a development team. One of the things that we were looking to do, and just to keep in mind, this is the development team. There will also be an implementation team as well to implement to implement QEP. But to answer your question, we're looking to add a few community partners to our advisory board as we continue to develop this. But we want to get a little further along before we invite community partners to kind of help with the development of that. But we are thinking about reaching out to community as well. So it's going to be some the development as we can. Anyone at that table? It was like 6 hands that went up. No? Okay. Oh, she is.
I've already spoken once, so somebody else.
It's okay. Go ahead. It's okay. I think they're bringing you a mic.
Oh. Just listening to the discussion that's unfolded, I've come to the conclusion that your mission is too broad, that if in fact there is evidence that shows that just service, engagement in service, improves educational outcomes, I would start with that. Center for service, don't fold in the service learning at this juncture. That can be an outgrowth of it, but I think, as Chad mentioned earlier, you've got two things going on here. You've got service and you've got service learning, and they're two very different things. They require very different outcomes assessment, and I'm afraid you haven't narrowed your focus enough for this to get successfully off the ground. So my recommendation is that you narrow that focus and choose one of the two as what you start with, and then you can broaden it, just like we did with the Discover program. We started it for freshmen, and then we broadened it as we went along. Just my 2 cents from listening to what's been going on.
Thank you. I believe we're out of time, but as I mentioned, we do have the handouts. If you could complete those and hand those back in, we certainly will address those. We meet monthly, so as I mentioned on the portal, we keep our minutes there. Some of the recorded sessions will be also questions at any point. Feel free to send us an email.